You know, how I look forward to reading these Shiurim, I never really realized it all the time that I was drilling with Rabbi Mimran, that he has such an ability to be able to write. In this piece, which is called God Essence, the source of all things, he coined some phrases I think that are very, very good. So I'd like to read this piece, take a look at some of the ideas that Rabbi Mimran is bringing us. So this starts off with, he says the droshos from the Tzlach. So drosh lamed hey. So the source, I don't really know the Tzlach, so let's see what he says. So the Tzlach writes, we are likened to a ladder which stands on the earth and its head reaching to the heavens. This is through the root of our soul from a very high place. This ladder, I think he means, comes through the root of our soul, or through the root of our soul from a very high place. And through this, we could rise up and get closer from one level to the next because the root is running through us. Each person, in accordance with his refinement and righteousness, that is, his ability to understand the Torah and what he needs to do. I think that's what he means by refinement, because it refines a person's behavior, and then his behavior is righteous. Within these higher worlds, we go up and down in accordance with our deeds. If good, then we go up. And if, God forbid, the opposite, we descend. These are the words of the Tzlach. Now, let's listen to the words of Rabbi Mimran. He says, the Holy Eitz Chaim, he says, if you learn the Eitz Chaim, it's the beginning of Shari Agulim of a Yosher, states that in the timeless realm where God dwells, and the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be, talking about the past, the present, and the future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection, totally beyond anything the human mind can ever imagine or comprehend. As it is written, Ayin lo ra'asa, no human mortal has ever seen the world to come. Now, I think those are beautiful worlds. He says God dwells, and the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be. The place that God is, all the past, the present, and the future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection. That's something impossible to think about, but it's a beautiful thought. This is where time does not exist. Time's only relevant to us because we only live a short amount of time. Whereas in our, here we up at the top, world of seemingly separate forms, timeless perfection is an inconceivable concept. Here, even the soul, which is the light emanating from the eternal source, the soul. Now, here's another phrase. What does he say is the soul? He says the soul, which in the previous shiur we're just talking about Naran, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. So these are words for soul, but they really refer to aspects of the light of the Ein Sof. Here, even the soul, which he says, right, it's the light emanating from the eternal source. Nice words. Eternal source, the Ein Sof, is nearly unperceivable due to our limited perception. As we're learning in the morning, when we're learning the Intrazuta, what we know about the places that are unknowable is only their manifestation. We have to reason backwards. It's called a hint. Going on. As it is known from the Kabbalah, everything that exists has a soul, has a panemius, a God essence, and therefore has some degree of consciousness. Even a stone has rudimentary consciousness and purpose. Otherwise, it would not be, and its atoms and molecules would disperse, so it has direction to it. Everything is alive. The sun, the earth, the stars, the planets, animals, humans, all are expressions of levels of consciousness in varying degrees. Consciousness of the soul manifesting as form. Let's go over this word again, because this is something that I try to use this idea too. The soul manifests as form, which means us. But the soul is just, I always use the word the reverse hologram. Is that the soul is something spiritual, has no physicality. But over a course of transporting through the system of light, which we call the partsufim, it grades more and more form. And so this, he has the word, the consciousness of the soul manifests itself as form, physicality. Therefore, the entire universe and all that is in it comes alive when pure God energy transmutes into these shapes and material forms. Look at the millions of life forms on this planet, in the sea, on land, in the air, and then each life form is replicated millions of times. Now, what does God need this for? To what end? In the sea, most life forms don't survive for more than a few minutes after being born. The human form turns to dust pretty quickly too. If you look at us, we're so important. But we turn to dust pretty quickly. And when it is gone, when we're not in this world anymore, how many times do we visit the cemeteries? Who visits cemeteries? The human form turns to dust pretty quickly, and when it is gone, it is as if it had never been. Is that tragic or cruel? What's the purpose? But then only if you create a separate entity for each form. This makes sense. Only when you look at each form as it's isolated. If you forget that its consciousness is God essence expressing itself in form. So you have to remember that what you're seeing when you look around the world is God manifesting himself in physicality. He calls it manifesting in form. I love it. This really cannot be internalized fully. This really cannot be totally and completely internalized, he says, until you realize your own soul essence as pure godliness. That's, what a great thing. But how to plug in, that's Rabbi Mimran's mission. So let's read this little blurb he has at the bottom. In the bottom he says, in the timeless realm where God dwells, and the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be, past, present, and future, all exist simultaneously in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection. This is Baruch Fleischman, and I'm saying this shiur for the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and I'm sending it out to the Vekas channel with Rabbi Yosef Chaim Mimran.